Yo, what's going on, guys? All Around Reptiles here. My name is Evan, and today we are going to be taking this enclosure and turning it into one of these. Yo, what's going on, guys? Alright, we are back home. We have the animal.
I've become a plant parent.
Now, what are these, you might ask? This is a custom bioactive planted reptile enclosure for my gargoyle geckos. In the last video, you saw me build this beautiful enclosure, and now we need to build this one. This was Ketchup's old enclosure, which is that gecko right there. He went into this enclosure, but now this enclosure is empty and it needs a custom enclosure. We're gonna do about the same that we did in this enclosure. This is another one of my geckos. Her name is Twizzler. We are going to be upgrading this enclosure to put another one of my geckos in it. So let's take this downstairs to the workshop and get working. Alright, now that it's down here, we have to actually get everything out of this enclosure. Now this is going to be a step-by-step enclosure build. So all we have to do now is obviously take out everything, and if you can, take off the doors to the enclosures. These doors can get really annoying when you're trying to build an enclosure, and they're not easy to get out. So if you can get them out without breaking them, good for you. If you can't, then they're honestly not that bad. It's just more in the case of breaking, because these guys are kind of hard to find if you have to get just one single door. All we have to do is get everything out. So we're just going to, alright, it's clean. I have the doors off. These suck to get off. I'm so serious. They're awful. I also have the lid off so I can get up and down and around in the lid. Now, I've cleaned it all, so what you want to do after, if you had an animal living in here before or prior to doing this upgrade, you want to clean it. You want to get a good scrub down. I recommend taking a razor blade and just scraping off all of the hard water or anything that would be on the side of this glass. And it'll just make your life easier, especially it'll make it look better at the final product. Alright, another thing you're going to want is obviously a lot of cork bark. I have this cork round, I have this like cork curve, I guess. But you're going to want a lot of flat pieces to create some type of texture for this background, because everything that isn't cork bark is going to be, I would suggest black spray foam, because there will be less gaps that will turn into big white spots and highlights that your eyes just drag to. So if you do that, it'll be a lot easier to hide the little mistakes and stuff like that that you may have with this stuff. Other than cork bark on your background, you're going to want something else, like some sort of viney plant and stuff like that coming down across it, like I do with my previous enclosure. And I use my 3D printed angled blocks, so when they go on enclosures, they actually come out at an angle, and all I have to do is silicone them down and then they won't fall. Now obviously everyone does not have the capabilities of a 3D printer, so you can use just a simple cup like this that all you have to do is stick it in place and spray foam around it. After you spray foam around it, you can take this out or you can leave it in. It doesn't matter. Now that you have all of your cork bark and your planters, you're gonna take this enclosure and flip it on its back. Now, I would suggest putting this on a lower platform, because this is my chest height, so I have to actually reach down. I can barely even touch the bottom of this, but that's okay. That doesn't really matter. Now that we have the enclosure on its side, we're going to take the planter blocks and cork bark stuff and start placing them around generally where you want them. Now that we have a rough layout drawn out, you have to remember that when building this mock-up, you have about probably 3 or 4 inches of area that you will never see because it will be under a substrate layer or under some type of drainage layer. So you can save a lot on cork bark and stuff like that if you don't put it that far down. Now that we have our basic mock-up done, we have to pull all of this out and start siliconing. Now, before you take it all out, I would suggest taking a picture of it so you don't forget what you just did. So, take a picture of it. Now that we have everything taken out of this enclosure, we're gonna use some silicone just to cover the back of this. Now, before we do this, this is a time-sensitive part of this project. Once you put this in, it's basically time to start spray foaming everything. Before we get to the big spray foaming step, I want to show you a key difference between this enclosure and this enclosure. Besides the obvious different structure from a straight tank like this to an angled tank like that, when building this enclosure, I did not use anything extra to adhere the coconut shavings to the spray foam. But with this enclosure, I used black silicone to help adhere it a lot better, and it makes it, the coverage becomes a lot better in this enclosure. There are not big gaps like that where you can see the spray foam very, very obviously. Now that is a completely extra step to these enclosures, and I'm going to use the black spray foam technique. If you don't want to, all you have to do is as soon as you finish spray foam the entire background, you want to dump as much coconut shavings as you have on the back of this enclosure. And if you want to see that enclosure, there is a build for this enclosure on my page. And you should be using 100% silicone, nothing added, because this goes inert when it dries and other stuff and like additives won't. So you want to use 100% silicone. Now that we have that little caveat, let's get to siliconing. Now that we have the siliconing done, and yes, I'm on a step stool because I'm short. Liar! Now we have to take this spray foam and spray foam this entire back, and then we can add our cork pieces. Before you spray foam, don't forget to add these guys in because these guys stick really well to the silicone if you're using a 3D printed block like I am. Alright, everything has been spray foamed. If you're using an 18 by 18 by 24 like I am, you should only need 1 can of spray foam. I used 2 because this one was partially used already. But now, if you are not using the silicone step like I am, the black silicone, you should take all of your coconut shavings and dump it on this. But if you are using the black silicone part, do not use it on this because it's going to gunk up your nozzle on your silicone when you are spreading everything out, and it's not going to stick very well to the spray foam. So with that, I will see you in about a day or so. Alright, it is done. It has been sitting for a few days. Now we're going to take our carving tools and we're just going to carve out most likely only really these 2 areas because these guys are the that hold all of our pothos in, or whatever we put there, our hanging plants, our plant wall, and maybe a little bit over here. But then we have to take this guy with our bit, if it'll focus, there it is. We're going to take this and then shave down everything so it gives it a rough surface for all of our silicone to stick on it, and we're just going to do the same thing as the part 1 of this video. Let's not smack a forehead. And we get to put all of that dirt in here, and then we're basically almost complete. So we're just going to get going on that. All right, now we are done roughing and shaping this entire thing. Now you don't necessarily have to use a wheel like I did. It just makes it a lot easier when roughing it up. But now we're gonna take this silicone, or if you have already done the spray foam and putting this on at the same time, the coconut fiber at the same time, then you're done. Skip this entire step. But for me, I'm going to take this silicone with a glove and going to lather it on everything but the cork bark, obviously. And then just silicone, or we're going to put silicone on, then we're going to dump this coconut fiber in, and then we're all set to wait a good 3 hours. Alright, the silicone has dried for about 5 hours. I would let this sit for a full 24 to 48 hours for all of the potential gases that come off of the silicone to be released. But now we have to just flip it up and take all of the excess that is obviously not sticking, that will not stick, out. So we're just going to... Alright, well, we're clean. Obviously, there's still stuff in the bottom. We will get this out, but now you're going to see that a lot of these edges look pretty rough because of the silicone. I just kind of shove it on and don't really worry about these edges, because we can take our razor blade and actually go right up along here and just take it right off. Now, there's still a little bit of residue, but if you go over it a few times, it just kind of disappears. And that's what makes siliconing so easy. But now we're going to get all this cleaned up and all of this cleaned up, and I will see you in a second. Alright, and there we are, all cleaned up. The edges are clean-ish. This just needs wiped out, and I will wipe that off with the microfiber cloth soon. I have a little bit over here, actually. But this is done, so we have to wait about 24 hours to let the silicone fully cure. And then we're going to take it upstairs, put the false bottom in, put the substrate on, put the plants in, and get the animal in. Alright, there it is. All we have to do is take this upstairs and put the last finishing touches, and then this is a complete reptile enclosure. So, all we have to do is take it upstairs. So, alright, and there we are. We're upstairs, right next to this enclosure. These are both the exact same enclosures, obviously just different backgrounds. So this background, it's a little dark up here because I do not have a light yet. I will get one. But now, for this drainage layer, we're going to use something called electroballs. There's a bunch of different companies that make them. Some of them make them a lot cleaner than this, or a lot dirtier than this. I will say though, please wash them out before you use them. They are covered in clay, just dust and whatever, so you want to clean all that off so the drainage layer does not get caked in clay, and then your drainage layer basically just doesn't work. So these are gonna go right. Alright, and this drainage layer is in. Now we have to use something that we use on all of these enclosures, which is actually a mesh barrier, and I have the mesh right here. I just have to cut it to shape, so we're just going to and there we go. Alright, we're gonna lay this guy in, and then we have our substrate. So our substrate is a mix between a little bit of dirt, coconut fiber, sphagnum moss, and I have activated carbon in here to help the springtails breed. So we're going to take all of this and put it into here. Alright, just like that, we are done with that. Now we have to get our plants going. I have a few pothos here. I have more on the plant wall over here. Pretty good amount of different types of plants, whatever. But we'll be using either that fern behind the orchid or that little guy, which is technically another fern. I think it's a bird nest fern, something like that. But it's kind of the fun part about building out these enclosures is you can buy a lot of different plants and just kind of test them where you think they fit, and sometimes they don't work, like that one over there. He's He's a little dead. But like my, I have a bunch of pothos in here, and I have pothos up here where she really likes to hide. You can see her head right there, and she's like killing that poor plant. But there's a bunch of pothos here that's growing really well. I also have this other fern back here that was repotted earlier, so it has not had enough time to root up yet. But we have a lot of places to play with this, so I'm just gonna start playing with it. Now, besides putting these top guys in, because they won't really be bothered much, you do want to actually put in your hardscape first, so you can know where the hardscape fits in and then go from there. So we're going to take this big guy and just kind of see where we can fit it. All of these Portobello Scaber Screwball Try colors. Let's see if I can find one. They're already in here. There's one right there. I did put a few already in here because they were just on this and I tapped them in before they ran off. There's a bunch of them on this. We are going to try to split this colony. Most likely I'm just going to dump the whole thing in and let them just do their own thing. And then we should be done for another 1 or 2 plants, and then we'll be ready for the final result. Can't wait for you to hear this next week. Alright, I have Marigold here. She is gonna go in this brand spanking new enclosure. Where are you gonna go? There's a branch there. You want the branch. Take the branch. There you go. There she goes. Look at that. So she has a little bit more space than her current enclosure. Her current enclosure is one of the old style enclosures that I did. This I obviously redid last. We're going to get her set up with some water and food in her dish over here, but with that being said, that is going to do it for this video of All in Reptiles. Hope you guys enjoyed. Next, we have part 3 of this video, and it is actually taking her enclosure and tearing it out and redoing it. So one of my new gargoyles that actually I produced myself is going to go up in here. And if you want to see more projects like this, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button on this video too. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, there might be something happening here within the next few months. But with that being said, I will see you in the next video.